What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. A day it has been. The title is the main point we'll be hitting today, but there is other stuff and we might get to that. I am still processing recent events, and I probably will be for a while, but recent events have made me think a lot about love, especially after doing a couple days of research on avoidant attachment style, which, as it turns out, should have seen this one coming. I'm not avoidant or dismissive avoidant. I'm still, in my attachment style, fearful avoidant. I was just burying it well. And one commenter recommended a book on the second to last video, and I ordered it. I appreciate the recommendation. Very interested to see what's in there. There isn't a good starting point here, so let's start with what I was thinking the most about. One of the things I learned about avoidance or dismissive avoidance is this fear of love not being special, which that's not the main thing. That's one small part of some wider idea. Lots to do with control and fear and hatred and self-hatred, but part of all that is this idea that love directed at a dismissive avoidant person either isn't real or it's not particular to them to the extent it will endure bullshit. I'm not explaining it as well as the videos I watched did, but if you're watching this channel, I'm assuming you've looked into attachment styles and you know what I'm trying to say. Essentially that this love isn't safe because it isn't that special. And what killed me is that is correct. After thinking about it for a while, that's absolutely right. Especially when you look at someone as emotionally scattered as I am. I don't make it very easy to believe in that illusion. And a big part of that is my terror of and pain in dealing with uncertainty. And that's bad enough with fearful avoidance. You add into that my history, living years in life or death uncertainty. I really don't handle uncertainty well. And almost nothing is special enough for me to endure emotional uncertainty for any extended period. However, the reason I was hesitant to accept that, even in myself, is something there is and was special. So how can something be not special and special at the same time? Well, with love, I think there are stages. It's like a plant. Now, I assumed love was special by default because people don't make me feel that way very often. Meaning, in this case, one person in 6 years, that must be special. And it is, kind of, but not. It isn't, at all. But that doesn't make it not love either. I think there's a difference between rarity and specialness. Now, I think love is love when you get hit with it. Even though it's not special, it is real. So if it's real but not special, and rare but not special, what is it? Or what is love in this stage? I think it's the potential for specialness. Specialness comes later. Specialness is not default. But when you're feeling it, even though right now it's not special, you know it could become special. By your feeling it, there is that possibility. But love in the potential stage, even if it's focused on one person, it's still in a general form because it hasn't specialized. The specialization comes when you make it special. So, love in this, again, even though directed at one person, is still this general form. It's like clay. You're feeling something rare but still general to one person. But when you choose to engage with it and stand by it and care for it like a plant, then it becomes special. It becomes personalized. It's like an identity unto itself. You think you're an individual, and technically you are, but you don't have an identity until you experience things and build one and figure out how to be this thing. And that's another thing. I don't think individualism and identity are the same thing either. So, on this basic level, love is not special. But if you're feeling it, then you can make it special. But it's a choice and it's an activity. It's something you spend time and effort doing. In other words, the certainty and safety comes later. And we'll get this out of the way now because people have not missed an opportunity to tell me what a retard I am. I know. There is a possibility I am completely and utterly misreading everything I saw and felt dealing with that woman. There is that possibility. As I've said before, and I think I said this a couple times before the sociopath arc, when you get fooled extravagantly. I recognize the possibility here of this being an extravagant bit of tomfoolery. But there are two counterpoints to that. One, even if it was, then I've managed to learn a whole lot from it. And two, I know what I smelled. Okay, back into it. Reaching that special stage of love feels anyway, almost impossible in a dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant configuration. But we are going to have to figure this out because this is all for Venus's entertainment. It has to be. There has to be some cosmic reason. This is the only category of person who speaks to me emotionally. This has to be some kind of big punked thing. So even though it feels impossible, we're going to have to figure this out. I can deal with a lot, if I think there is a win condition. But what I can't do, at least not for very long, is perform resilience without a stated goal. Because I'm obsessive. That's probably why I trained myself to perform field amputations anytime I felt anything. Because you can't do this. At least not all the time, and certainly not to your emotional detriment. Prolonged uncertainty feels like being covered in hot tar. Except it's worse than that, because at least hot tar is just a physical thing. When I'm dealing with prolonged emotional uncertainty, I can't function as a human being. I mean, I can't handle day-to-day shit. Much less the heavier hitting stuff that you need to practice being on guard at your best at all times to be able to deal with. And what do dismissive avoidants do? Not tell you things and keep you in emotional uncertainty. Which I thought was just a girl thing, but although women do have their own baseline or form of this, it's not this. it's nowhere near this intense and extensive. And of course, men have their own versions, except men's is more pride related most of the time. Without practice, dismissive avoidant people will not tell you what they're thinking or how they're feeling. And then, once what they're thinking or how they're feeling gets to a point, they disconnect. Now, I've been in this hell my entire life, so my muscles for this are a little bit better, but it still doesn't feel good. It's still frustrating, and it's also still majorly uncool. The difficult thing is I can't just say, go fuck yourself to these people. One, because it's not entirely their fault, and two, I care about them. But in this, there's a difficulty. It's also a release of responsibility to an extent. There is, at least according to what I've read and listened to, nothing I can do about that. It is something that can be worked on, but it needs to be the avoidance choice. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of stuff that should hurt me doesn't, and things that shouldn't do. Again, I know what I smelled, but if I'm not, or if I don't warrant making that choice for, that's something I can deal with and actually deal with it relatively easily. Because it's a certainty. What I can't deal with is all the flavors and varieties of uncertainty. It's the mixed signals, which seems to be characteristic of dismissive avoidance. And I'm not guiltless. I have and do unreasonable shit. For example, jealousy is a huge thing for me when I love someone. Jealousy to an unreasonable degree. The difference is I recognize it as unreasonable, and I'm willing to get shot a few times to manage it or to get it in order because it's worth it. And but with dismissive avoidance, this idea of worth itness seems to be the kicker, which is why they do the mixed signals, if I'm understanding this correctly. It seems to be testing, but there are a number of problems with that. Because let's say you push through all this dismissive avoidant smoke and mirrors and get somewhere. You got there playing poorly and you set a number of bad precedents that won't help specialize the love in the future. It'll keep it at risk at all times. Example, you push through the mixed signals test and the dismissive gets what they want, but they've set a precedent that ensures they'll never get what they really want. Because what you've trained your partner to do by ignoring what you say or act like is you've trained them to do that with everything. The new standard is ignoring what you say or think or feel, which, thinking about it, maybe this goes back to dismissive avoidance childhoods. It's like they're training people to do to them what was done to them. And that's fucked for everybody involved. And I recognize that in fearful avoidance, or my fearful avoidance specifically, I'm doing something very similar. But the difference would be to break myself to a point I can act normally, which does not sound healthy at all either. And maybe this is where unfairness comes in. I'm trying to break myself into a point of acceptability. Like with the jealousy thing. exposure therapy to the point it doesn't bother me anymore, and then I can function like a normal person. Not setting a precedent that will ensure my needs are always ignored or overstepped. And that's a bad precedent for the person who's expected to overstep and ignore too, because that's not something you want to do if you respect and love your partner. And also, you're hanging by not even an emotional thread, by emotional fumes. You're gutting yourself and you aren't even sure if it's worth this much pain. And the fairy tale answer is, of course it's worth that much pain. But again, you're born into this attracted to dismissive avoidant people crucible, this fucking ring of hell. A lot of the times you'll gut yourself and it'll be completely worthless. Or worse, even worse, you do gut yourself and you do get somewhere, but now the precedent has been set that you will gut yourself for no clear reason. And what you're doing there is you're playing Russian roulette. Because at some point, you'll hit a full cylinder. And, God, you can't live your life like that. And thinking back to the very beginning, maybe I should have amputated, however gruesome. But the reason I didn't, and the reason I'm still thinking about this, the reason I'm making a video like this at all, is I can smell something worthwhile. And I don't just mean for them or for me. I mentioned it a while ago. This is some kind of ritual that plays out on intervals, or at intervals. There is a way to win. There is a way to complete the ritual, and there is something worthwhile in completing it. I think that's healing. And it's odd because I have a lot of mixed opinions about myself. But in this instance, I think I'm ready to do whatever needs to be done on my side of the table. It seems irrational and impossible, but I can do Blackwater tier mysticism now, and I manage a non-profit. I exist in succeeding in the material and immaterial, impossible and irrational. So I don't know what to do. The simple answer is accept when a dismissive avoidant chooses not to be forward, and take it instantly as a sign to move on. But that doesn't feel right. And I don't mean that in a moral sense. I mean it in a puzzle-solving sense. There's got to be a way to do this outside allowing bad precedents to be set, or hacking off your leg and limping away. And because it's not like a clean cut, if you're at this point that you recognize it's their turn to make a choice, you're already hooked. Maybe that's what this spin on the carousel was designed to teach me. So we've established hacking off your leg isn't the way to go. We know allowing bad precedents to be set isn't the way to go. So what do you do to make straightforwardness easier for them? I'm not sure yet. Because if we bring in limerence language for a moment, the instant you hit that glimmer, it feels like the fuse on a bomb has been lit. You both have an intense and limited amount of time to figure this shit out before the dismissive avoidant dismissively avoids and forces the position of either you amputate your leg and leave, or you allow bad precedents to be set. And of course, the rational, reasonable outsider point of view would say, well, why do you have to do more in this case isn't that setting its own bad precedent? In this instance, I don't think so. Because once a person has decided to walk through the fire, to start walking through fires, well, that's the thing. Usually there's a moment in someone's life they decide to walk through the fire on something important. And in my experience, watching people, dealing with people, being one of these people, that turns into a series of fire walkings. So, although it's not something you want to do, I don't think in this case it's setting a bad precedent. You've taught or helped a person learn to fish. And furthermore, as a dude, there's a level of bullshit responsibility I think part of becoming a man is accepting that bullshit responsibility, a level of it. And that's for a number of reasons. One, if you expect to wait on a woman to take responsibility, that's like getting doused in Death Stranding rain. You'll die of old age, which is to say it's not gonna happen. And I say that in a snarky way, hoping women will choose to take a little more responsibility instead of falling into patterns. You can hate it. It is pretty misogynistic, a misogynistic thing to say. But women, by and large, maybe it's a typology thing, blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. Women do not like taking responsibility for things. I know a third of our audience is women. I know my core audience is women. Please, God, don't act like this. Anyway, for the dudes in the audience, or for the women dealing with dudes who want to integrate better, there's a level of acid you'll have to walk through yourself to initiate to get anything done. That's the first part of manness. The second part is, and this goes a little bit beyond what we're talking about here, but do you want anybody else to have to walk through acid? And again, there is a difference between walking through acid and gutting yourself for absolutely no reason. If the first reason was more practical, this second reason is more role-based, gender-based. Are you comfortable sleeping at night knowing you knowingly chose to put more pain and burden on someone or on people you care about? And then the third reason, the nicer reason, it feels nice. It feels nice to take on burdens for people you care about, especially women. And I mean, it is good for them, but really this is about how you feel about yourself. Taking care of people feels good in a totally selfish, ego-affirming way. So you have 3 reasons why you should not just be willing to, but want to do this additional, unreasonable, unfair, totally unfair shit. So, yes, and yet again, we've learned more about this ritual. The issue this time, and I guess this is the issue each time, is I have no idea where even to begin with that. Actually, there is a good point there. Women, you don't want to lose these chances either. Clock's a-ticking. We're dying. Help us help you. For the love of God. But actually, if we're talking about not just woman dismissive avoidance in general, for the love of God, help us help you. When people are trying to meet you on your terms, the answer is not to make your terms so fucking ridiculous you guarantee nothing will happen. It's like Fight Club. You have to let go of the wheel if you want to get anywhere. Sometimes. This is one of those times. And there was an entire other part of this video I was thinking about making earlier in the day when I was thinking about it, and I was on a ridiculous nicotine conquest rush But I think we'll save that for another time. At least we're learning. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.